how do you approach the valuation discussion with early stage investors, which is sometimes incredibly difficult to evaluate? And so what range would you say that you typically see, and what are the trends around valuations that you're seeing? It's more of a buyer's market, a seller's market, and I'm going to go with Atul first.
Sure, and like you said, it's an extremely difficult topic, and one which we frankly don't even get into, right? Because from our perspective, at the stage when we get involved, you really have no basis for doing evaluation, and that's why we stay away from things like immuno-oncology. So it's actually just a very straightforward discussion saying, this is what we're going to bring to the table, both in terms of cash and everything else we bring, and in exchange, this is the ownership stake that we expect. And so that's kind of an upfront discussion we have, and only after we feel like we're in the ballpark do we actually get into it.
And what do you typically see as a typical valuation in your sector?
I think, again, Houston's much less, shall we say, competitive from an investing point of view than, say, Boston is. But, I'd be shocked if we did anything where the valuation was north of $1 million.
North of $1 million. Mm-hmm. I'm going to invest with you.
Yeah.
Chris?
Most our companies that we've invested in are definitely north of $1 million. So we see a few things. So one, a lot of the kind of coming out of YC, this whole safe notes and caps and whatnot is really the driving factor there. So for us, we're very flexible, like whether it's a convertible note or a safe in that sense, because it is difficult to have these valuation discussions. On maybe like a traditional Series A or even a little bit later, I hate seeing that. I want it to be a price round, just because I don't like being unaligned with the company in terms of almost rooting for that valuation to be lower so that my 20% discount on a convertible note is not as well thought of. So we'd like to see priced on a little bit later, but we understand on kind of maybe your first fundraising round that it's would be a note or a safe in that form.
So you typically like to see a convertible loan note. That's your general.
I think
is it 20% discount? Is that what you typically do in general? Do you vary that?
It just kind of depends. So we've done so many different structures. Yeah, it's tough. But the biggest thing I want to see is a cap. That's the biggest thing I want to see versus a discount. So.
Okay.
Yeah, to just quickly echo that, it varies wildly. But in seed and sometimes Series A investing, you commonly see convertible notes or safes. So there's a huge range.
Mike?
So transactionally, we also have a model where, again, we source our technology from these affiliate partners. And so we have one model transactionally that works for all the universities where they own the IP, but there are a number of situations where they don't, say they're students and they're not under the IP policy or they've waived the IP policy. So we actually have an affiliate called HealthStart NJ who takes those on. In those cases, we typically use safes. In the case of our more traditional deals, we go right from basically a paid option to when we do the startup, it's a combination actually of equity and debt.
So can you give a couple of examples with numbers, and you don't have to name the company, of the kind of deals that you've done?
Yeah, and I think a little bit like the tools, these valuation and structures are pretty easy for us because it's just cookie cutter from our perspective. And at the stages of development where we participate, you could argue valuation forever. It's just very hard to actually come to a known valuation. So we have a cookie cutter model. We provide up to $500,000 in total capital, $250 cash, $250 in the form of debt. We get 25% of the company. That's the model. That means if you don't like it, then we're not going to be able to do a deal together. And sometimes there are companies that are more mature, say, then that perceived valuation would say warrant us getting a deal. And that's okay. If they're more mature than our model, then Series A investors will pick it up, and that's okay. We don't do it.
So that's typically around a $1 million valuation.
Around,
and then,
yeah. And it's an interesting conversation because again, it's this blended. And when you're doing the math, I mean, you really have to first, pure valuation, just look at the cash. And so it's probably actually like $750 pre-money. But then they do get the benefit of the additional $250, which a lot of people don't want to, all they get stuck on the valuation number, right, on the equity side. But I say to them, you can't get access to $250,000 in debt. likely either from a traditional source of capital. And so, but the idea, I mean, the philosophy we try to bring to the entrepreneur, and we really believe this, is take the money in, blow through some valuation or milestones, and create more value. Build a very strong company. I think you mentioned it. You know, part of it is if you just build really solid companies, you're going to do well economically.
And one of the differences I've seen, or something about the US, is that these startup valuations are actually quite low, and in more or less in the ballpark with the rest of the world, let's say. But when you get to your Series A, they really ramped up the valuations, and I think that what I've seen, some of the valuations I've seen after the seed round, or even like a post-seed round, are kind of eye-watering. And then you kind of blow everybody else out of the water. You like 2 or 3 times the UK valuation at the next round or so. So I think it makes sense. You know, once you get going, then one thing I always, an idea is actually not worth that much money. There's no value in it really. It's an idea, we see lots of ideas, but actually executing an idea, that's where the real value is. And so we can get to that point, then we can really make a difference to the business. And I appreciate you sharing some of the numbers as well. Thank you.